individual states can now have their own minimum wage. So you can have, say, Anambra may have, say, XYZ as their own minimum wage, and Kanu will have their own minimum wage, and Lagos will have their own minimum wage. But the Nigerian Labour Congress is seeing it as an attempt to probably dismember them or whittle down their influence at the national level.
You think it's justified? Because, I mean, way before now, it wasn't centralized. It was former President Obasanjo's time that he came in, and all of those were centralized. Then he came back and said, look, I'm the one who brought it all under the exclusive list in the first place. Now I want to take it back to how I met it. And you all are complaining. So,
but you see, if you look at it realistically, I think it is better for states to determine their own, because the economies are different. If you pay me, if what you pay somebody in, if you pay somebody a particular amount of money in Lagos, and then you want to pay the same amount of money to somebody in Enugu, the economies are different. The standard of living there, they are not the same.
But they don't seem to raise these points when they get to the Council of State meeting, where they all agree, or is it NEC meeting, where they all agree on those recommendations, but only they go back to the states and say, sorry, I can't pay. So that's some sort of inconsistency on their part, for those who do that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, yeah.
Well, who knows? How do you see this ending, this amendment of the Constitution?
Well, I think, for me, I think that the National Assembly should take very seriously this question I continue to ask as to the nature of constitution we want. Do we really want this centralized arrangement where everything comes from the national down? Because I think that's actually why there is this amount of tension. Because if every faith or every group or every ethnic enclave appears to be very, very concerned about somebody taking their rights or putting them at some kind of disadvantage.
But aren't we glossing over one part? Don't forget, this is politics, because it's political. They will always amend it politically. Given those political institutions. Now, you remember regions. Some regions have 7 states, some have 6, some have 5. How do you think there will ever be a balance at the end of the day when they come to vote? So it appears as though it will always be lopsided based on that arrangement.
Well, it still goes back to the point I've been making. What kind of constitution do we want? I remember, I think it was Alex Ekweme that recommended having a 6 geopolitical zone. Maybe that would solve the problem. So it's about what we want, as what kind of arrangement we want. Do we like this overbearing centralized arrangement, or is it or should we devolve power?
Even though we are a federal system.
Yes, in fact, this is even tied to the issue of, because we say we're a federal system, but we operate a unitary arrangement. So it just doesn't make sense. We take one position, in theory, but in practice we take another position. It doesn't make sense. We have a centralized police, we have a centralized court system, where everything is centralized, and yet we're a federation.
Is it possible to get lawyers, maybe the body of lawyers, not benchers, maybe MBA, to come up and say, well, these are the recommendations that we think should happen, and we'd like to stick to our guns?
Well, I don't know if this is a personal opinion. I don't know if the NBA will be in a position to do that, because the NBA too has the same problem, because the NBA is centralized too.
Oh, yeah. There you go. So where do we turn to? Where do we start?
Because we have a national NBA, and they
have chapters, though.
Yes, they have chapters, but you'll notice that the center is actually stronger than the units. So even though the units, they do a few things, but the center is still very, very strong.
So they are putting forth from the tree.
So it's about deciding, what would work best for the country. What's the nature of a constitution we want?
Well, I think looking at the time now, what will work best is just the 8 o'clock headline news. But we have to thank you for coming on this morning.
Colin
Sepeke, a legal practitioner. All right, then let's go for the headline news. Cynthia, again.
Hello again. Good morning. Here are the headlines. Intrigues and high-level politicking over the Amendment 2013 budget may have finally paid off. The Senate has passed the 2013 Amendment budget bill through the crucial second hearing. And reports say that the Senate also intends to conclude work on the budget in 24 hours, which is automatically today. And in what appears to be a replay of what happened at last week's legislative proceedings, the House of Representatives has for the third time postponed voting on the report of the ad hoc committee on the review of the Constitution. The lawmakers put up the process after testing a new system to be used for the voting. Some of them maintain that the technology appeared to be in good condition and are optimistic that it would make for a transparent and credible voting process. And it's one thing to pass a bill, but implementation is a different ballgame altogether. Well, the Freedom of Information Act, which is crucial to good governance and accountability, came into effect on May the 28th, 2011, but appears to be standing on shaky legs. To aid the implementation of the Act, the Ministry of Justice, in partnership with the United Nations Development Programme, has handed guidelines for implementation to government agencies to help them understand what exactly is required of them. On to the foreign scene now. The Duke of Cambridge has said he and his wife are still working on a name for their son, who has spent his first night at home after leaving hospital. The world got its first glimpse of the unnamed prince as the royal couple left the St. Mary's Hospital in West London. Speaking to journalists on the steps of the hospital, William said they would choose a name as soon as they could. George is the bookmaker's favorite for the name of the prince, who is destined to be king one day, while James and Alexander are among other names on a short price. Finally, around 400,000 Roman Catholics have joined a ceremony on Copacabana Beach in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro to mark the opening of World Youth Day. The highlight of the festival today will be a visit by Pope Francis, and the Pope arrived in Brazil on Monday, making his first trip abroad since becoming head of the Roman Catholic Church. His visit is taking place under tight security after weeks of protests against the government and corruption. Those are the headlines. Sunrise Daily continues shortly.
Yes, indeed. We'll be back after the break.
Some might even say it's a shocking pain, and it's usually caused by hot, cold drinks. It definitely affects the quality of life. The treatment for tooth sensitivity can be very simple. Brushing with Sensodyne twice daily will give you long-lasting protection from tooth sensitivity. Sensodyne works inside the tooth and it soothes the nerve, and then the patient will have a relief of their pain. Sensodyne can be used every day. You don't have to use another toothpaste. For me to have a toothpaste that solves that problem so simply is what I like about Sensodyne.
At this special time, there is no greater virtue than sharing the nourishment of Peak in special Ramadan packs. Ramadan Kareem from Peak.